Okay, today I'd like to actually go over some of the highlights for the area for the February Real Adventure Kayak Fishing Tournament. So what I've got up on the screen here is I've got the satellite view that shows the rough boundaries. So essentially we're going to be from Anclote Key, Anclote River, Three Rooker Island, Honeymoon Island, Caladesi, and most of Clearwater down to about the inlet, which is where Sand Key is. So this is your lower boundary down here at Sand Key, and this is your upper boundary at Anclote before you get off the end of the key. So there's a lot of places to launch from. I know on the map this is a lot smaller than the previous tournament is, but we've got a lot of launch locations and there's a lot of area to cover in terms of fishable location, fishable waters. So starting up at the north end, I'm going to cover the launches that I'm familiar with. There are obviously other places you can launch from. There's little cuts here and there that you can put in at, but these are going to be the majority of the publicly accessible launches. So we'll start up north at Anclote. So if we zoom in here, we've got the main launch, which is at Anclote River Park. Um, I'm not going to discourage people from launching here, but I will say that if you have any issues with boat traffic, this is not where you're going to want to launch. Anclote Ramp is one of the busiest launch areas in our region, and boat traffic gets insane, especially on the weekends if it's a nice weekend out. So if you're at all uncomfortable launching around boats, or just generally people being hot-headed trying to get in and out of the ramps, novice boaters who really don't know what they're doing, lots of cross current. You've got a really ripping cross current through here, especially if you've got an opposing wind. So while this is a launch point, I'm going to caution you to be very careful if you choose to use this launch point and make sure that you are experienced and that you're comfortable. If that doesn't match you, don't launch here. The next closest spot, if you want to come into this set of keys and everything up here, would be to launch from down here at Fred Howard Park. So Howard Park Beach, Fred Howard Park, there is a public kayak canoe launch that's back in here, kind of in the mangroves that dumps you out. I want to say it goes into the lake here, and then you'd have to work your way out through this canal, or you can launch from the causeway down on the beach. There is there's a kayak rental location right here on this corner, and a lot of times you can come in, park off here, and launch off the northern northeast point here, and that'll get you where you want to go. Or you can launch off the south side and head south, or go through a couple of the bridges here. So what that'll get you is that'll get you access again to that set of keys up here on the Anclote River, from a little bit safer launch than trying to launch from Anclote River Park there. Also, if the day's nice, you can paddle over to Anclote Key. So let's see, if I go measure distance from here over, it's about a mile. So it's a mile to the lighthouse. The lighthouse is right up in here. So you got a mile paddle to get over to the key, and that'll give you access to all of the backside of Anclote Key. Again, caution you, as I've done on the forum, if you're not comfortable in open water, this is a rather large inlet here, and if you get any kind of water movement, or a decent wind, you will see some fairly big rollers. You'll see cresting caps in through here. I've had to turn my boat back making this crossing before, just because the conditions were less than favorable. So just be very, very careful. I can't stress it enough. Don't cross this crossing here unless you know what you're doing and are comfortable in rough waters. Obviously, wear your PFD and all of the safety measures that go with that. Have a radio on hand. But if you're comfortable with that, this backside of Anclote Key is a great fishery. So that's why we wanted to go ahead and make sure to include it in the boundaries there. So a little bit farther south there, you've got Sunset Beach right here. There is a small little dirt boat ramp there. You can launch there. So if you want to fish along any of the coastline here, up or down, and just don't feel like parking at Fred Howard, you can launch from Sunset. Now, quick note: most of these launches, very restricted parking if you have a trailer. So they're really meant for beach parking, stuff like that, people coming in with just their vehicles. If you do have a trailer, if you're lucky, you can find two spots side by side. You can disconnect your trailer and stick your trailer next to your vehicle. Highly recommended, because there's not going to be pull-through spots for trailer parking at either of these two parks, as I remember it. So heading a little bit further south from Sunset, we're going to be looking into kind of the Crystal Beach area. I haven't launched from up here, but actually no, I have. There's where is it? Thought there was a little launch in here. Oh, it's probably this I'm thinking of. I don't think that's open to the public right now. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to get back there, so don't worry about that. So the next one south is going to be Crystal Beach. So Crystal Beach, right here by Crystal Beach Pier, which is this little pier jutting out here. There's area here. There's public or open parking along the grass here, or up in the park right here. You can park and you can launch here. The launches here are not too bad. It's mainly, it's kind of mucky sand. It's a sand launch, but there's going to be some muck in through there. But it's not a bad launch. It's better than some of the others that I'm going to talk about. So you can launch here at Crystal Beach. And from Crystal Beach, obviously, you can go north or south along the coastline. Not much in the way of spoils until you get out to here. You can use this as a crossing to the northern end of Honeymoon. Just be aware that it's a fairly decent paddle. So that's right at just shy of 3 miles. So that's a pretty long paddle just to get out to a good fishery. You can fish the spoils up in here, but otherwise this is largely grass flats. So if you're looking for grass flats and fish, not a bad area. Trout is king in through here. I've caught a lot of good trout in through this area here. There are reds, there are snook, there are going to be flounder and jacks and all that stuff. So that's just this whole area, this whole kind of inside the sound here is just huge grass flats, potholes, channels. So just kind of do your homework, figure out where you want to go, and pick a launch. So going further south from Crystal Beach, we've got Pop Stansell Park. So Pop Stansell Park right here in Palm Harbor, you can put in. Again, it's a very mucky launch. So let's get it to render here. Okay, so you're going to park back in here. If you have a trailer, you can probably park along the edge here. Or you've got individual spots. You can pull off into this area. They've since blocked this, so you cannot put a vehicle onto the protected mangrove areas back here. This is all protected mangrove area. So they've blocked vehicle access because it was getting torn up pretty bad. But you can park out here, walk over, and launch from either side here. I'll typically launch here because the water is fairly deep. You can see the dark spot here. So the water gets deep there, 5-6 foot deep, as it were. And that gets you access to some inland. This is Sutherland Bayou, so you've got a lot of inland protected cove areas. So if you're not comfortable going out into the sound or out into open water, something like this wouldn't be too bad of an idea to look at. You can do your research, but there's oyster beds, there's grass, there's some canals or channels rather. Just be careful because it does get really shallow up in this area. So if you're on a pedal drive, there's a lot of this that's inaccessible to me with a pedal drive, but if you're paddling, you can get back in here. And then ultimately there's a little boat ramp here. Again, you could launch from the boat ramp. I don't recommend it. It's a single ramp and it gets really busy. So, all right, let's see. So that's Pop Stansell, and Pop Stansell gets you access to a couple of the spoil islands here, and then out into Horseshoe Island and some of these spoils, as well as down into some of these coves off along the eastern shore or the western shore here. All right, so the next one is going to be anywhere along the causeway. So depending on where you want to go, so the main area to launch is going to be near this last bridge here. So you would come out the causeway and launch at the last bridge. You're going to want to launch on the south side of the causeway. So in this area here, or anywhere on down the south area. So you'd launch off here. It's a nice sand area. You don't want to launch off the north side. You can't really see it real well, but this dark line here, there's actually a ledge. So you'd have to kind of manhandle your kayak down the ledge and into the water. So I recommend coming off the south end of the causeway at one of the bridges. And from here, you can either choose to go under the bridge and head up north to the backside of Honeymoon Island, or you can head south to the northern end of Caladisi. So a couple things to watch for on this launch. This area in particular, under the bridge, and all this dark area through here, and then up through this, if you have an easterly wind, so if you've got a wind coming in from right to left in screen here, the water will get very angry. You get the water pushing up against some seawall here and bouncing back into a deep channel. It makes for some really difficult surf to get around in. I've had to tack back and forth through here to get in because of the direction of the waves. It will roll you if you're not paying attention, if it's at all rough out there, and that will actually carry all along through this area here. So you'll get, it might only say 1 to 2 foot chop, but you're going to get white caps. You're going to get some decent rollers in there that if you take them broadside and you're not paying attention, they can flip you. So just be careful. On a good calm day, this is gorgeous water. If you've got a westerly wind coming in from this way, it's nice protected water. So it'll be relatively smooth in here. Into some of these bayous, you've got some spoils, you've got some potholes and coves. So lots of good fishing in there, but just be very cautious of wind direction and your tide changes, because you get an incoming tide with an easterly wind, it doesn't make for a fun time fishing in there. Just a heads up. So if you go south from there, depending on the tide, you've got Hurricane Pass here, which is a nice pass, but you're going to get a lot of boat traffic in through here, and you can see that the boat channel actually comes in here, comes out around this sandy spoil here, and then off that way. So this area is covered by water on higher tides. During low tides, this is completely exposed. So there's a big sandbar out here. People like to go hang out there. You'll get boats lined up around there, kayakers, all kinds of stuff. So that's a good fun area if you're not fishing. But if you are fishing, kind of avoid that spot. There is a small cut through here, as you can see, where it's deeper water. Otherwise, you're going to follow this light green down here to get around all that. And then you can see you've got grass flats with some potholes here, lots of mangrove lines all along the backside of Caladisi, and then ultimately coming down to, this is the main channel, that's the entrance to the Caladisi Marina, and you've got a lot of spots back in here in terms of just nice sheltered, protected coves and stuff like that. So that's the northern end of Caladisi, and that's launching from the Dunedin Causeway. Next launch spot is going to be Edgewater Park. So Edgewater Park is down here in Dunedin. This is downtown Dunedin along this stretch here. And as you come around the bend here, there's a marina and a public boat launch. The public boat launch is a single ramp right here. But if you follow this road to the left of the launch all the way down, you get back to this parking lot and you'll see that there's a sail club and kayak launch. So you got the Dunedin Boat Club here, which is a sailing club, and a kayak launch. This is a really nice beachy launch here. It's low traffic. This is one of my favorite spots to launch from. It's clean, it's accessible. There's a nice ramp down onto the sand. Be aware during low tide that you can see out to here is pretty much exposed, so you might have to walk your kayak for a ways. If the tide's going to be up at all, you can launch from right on here, and you're good to go. Again, pay attention to parking. If you're trailering, if you have a trailer attached, you're not going to be able to park through here. If you're lucky, you can find two spots next to each other. Again, disconnect your trailer, put your trailer next to it. So on either side of the boat club here, you'll see that directional parking. So just try to stay in the lines, be courteous of others, because they do a lot of stuff out of the sailing club here. So park here, put your trailer next to you. If you don't want to disconnect your trailer, you can come back out here and park in the public the boat ramp parking. Just be aware that it's $10 a day, I think, for non-residents. So, and then I think there's some overflow parking. Might be off down here. I think that might be. So there's overflow parking if they're full here. So, but again, that's a $10 parking. If you park back there, it's free to park along this edge here. And from there, from Edgewater Park, you can cut across and you can get to a bunch of these spoils. So you get into Core Island, you get into Malone Island, Schrader's Cut, or Schrader Cut, Redfish Point, Dunedin Pass. So all of this area here is very fishable. Just be careful. Again, you can see where some of these grass flats are here. This area is all exposed at high tide. So anything, if it's negative tide, you're not getting through there.
Just a moment. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I didn't say anything to you, Siri. If it's negative tide, you're not getting through here. You're going to have to come down and follow this cut and come up and then through here. Anything over about a 0.3 tide, you should be fine getting through here. Zero tide, you should be able to get through with paddles. You'll need about 0.3 to 0.5 to cleanly get through here with pedals, unless you're going to go follow the cuts. You won't notice these cuts very well when you're on the water, so you kind of need to know where they are. Once you get in through here, it's all deep water cuts. There's a lot of shoaling. There's a lot of oyster beds, so just be careful when you're in here. It's deep water through here. It's deep water back here. This is all obviously exposed at low tide, as well as down through here. So that covers Edgewater and the south end of Caladesi. And then last but not least, we've got the Seminole boat ramp. So Sand Key is kind of our southernmost spot for the tournament. So I wouldn't recommend going anywhere into this area, because your boat traffic is going to be insane, especially down through here through the Causeway Bridge. But if you launch from Seminole boat ramp, you can cut across and kind of work your way through some of the slower traffic under the bridge and get off into Clearwater Bay. The marina's off over this way, and then you've got the point for the keys. You've got some spoils in here. You've got all of your residential docks and stuff like that if you like fishing there. All your docks up through here, some spoils to the north of there. So and ultimately you could cut this channel up and again get back to the south end of Caladesi if you wanted, depending on how much paddle or pedal time you want to put in. You've got some cuts here under the bridges into some of these little cove areas. So without getting into specific spots, I'm not going to do a spot dissection, maybe not until after the tournament. Just kind of to be fair, don't want to make it too easy on everybody, but it's a great area. This whole area is very fishy. You're going to find bigger fish in some areas than others, but you really can't go wrong with any of the spots you choose. It'll be down to moving water, lure selection for this one. It's all artificial, and kind of knowing where not to fish. And I'm not going to tell you where not to fish. You'll have to figure that out on your own. But there are a lot of areas that are going to be not so much dead zones, but it might tie you up with trout and snook and channel cats and flounder and stuff like that. So you'll get tied up with stuff that's irrelevant to the tournament. Also, since it's we're currently in, we're still restricted. We can't keep our trout, we can't keep our reds, we can't keep our snook. So for those of you who maybe further up north kept your trophy red or kept your limit on trout, we cannot do that here. We're still restricted. Still can't keep any of that stuff as the population recovers from the red tide the last few years. So that pretty much covers the region, as well as the main launch points. Those who are local may know a couple other little launch points in and out of there. I'm not going to tell people to go down dirt roads and go find hidden shacks and turn it right here. I'm focused more on here's your public launch points. Here's the areas where I know I'd be comfortable launching from. Or if I'm not comfortable, but I know there's a launch like Anclote, I did my best to highlight that for you guys. So I think that just about covers it for this video. Look forward to seeing you guys on the 21st for the captain's meeting, February 21st, February 22nd for the tournament. Cyrus will cover all of the details for the tournament, including safe launch time, basically the time everybody's allowed to go out. How to show your safety equipment. Make sure you've got your PFDs on at all times. Make sure you've got your whistle available, preferably some sort of signaling device just for USCGA regulations. You got to have a whistle, some sort of visual signaling device like a mirror or a flare or something like that. If you have them, clip your radios on. Sometimes it's nice just to hear what's going on around you. We've had boats come flying through there from emergency vehicles and stuff like that, so it's always kind of nice to know what's going on around you. So if you've got a handheld radio, bring that. Definitely your PFD. Otherwise, should be a good time. I look forward to seeing everybody there, and thank you. And we'll see you soon.